Hopefully that'll be easier on the eyes. So I did add a little border around. I think it'll be helpful for viewers and a little bit for myself to properly plan out things. So on the bottom, we've got the overall tasks. And on the right side, I'll start planning out each subtask. So right now I'm working on hand gestures. First things first, I need to plan out the steps required for hand gestures. In this case, I've already done quite a bit for the hand gestures. Gonna take too many more steps. Hey there, Metler. Welcome, welcome. We're going to be focusing on the hand and all of its various scripts. Finger, probably the input. Doing pretty good, Metler. Haven't done much this morning, so I gotta make up for it this evening. I was feeling pretty lazy today. How about you? Enjoying your Saturday? Good, good. So I've kind of settled solution where I have a single open and closed pose. I think I've got this player set up with it already. Look at his right hand. Yes, he's got his poses. Just hit play. I should be able to stretch his arm out and look at them real fast. Got an open pose where every finger is basically perfectly straight. Just the maximum amount of open on each finger that I'll need. So the thumbs up. Thumb is already in a thumbs up gesture, and the index is already in the pointing gesture. And on the opposite end, I've got the closed pose, which is every finger as far closed as it can be, which is a fist. That's the fist gesture already completed. So now I'm working on a set of sub gestures, such as the thumbs up, pointing, and the OK signal. That's kind of your thumb and your index finger making a circle. So the way I'm gonna set those up is each gesture changes how the minimum and maximum bend of the finger. So for a thumbs up, all four of these can bend all the way in, and the thumb can bend all the way out. So I've already gone through for each gesture and looked at what percentage of bend I need for each finger. So the OK, index finger is halfway, thumb's 3/4, etc., etc. So I already have the positioning. What I really need to work on is the rules. And I want this to be weighted so that as you go from one gesture to the next, it transitions smoothly. Don't want it to just snap. So right here, this is how I'm storing the poses. So I've got general finger pose. You name the pose. I don't know if I need these requirements because I have changed how I want to set this up a couple of times. It might just be best to start from scratch. Because right now it's set up for the requirements. The requirements need to be met before it starts weighting. So if the requirements aren't met, then it's not weighted at all. It gets a weight of 0. But like I said, I want it to be smooth, and I feel like there's probably going to be at least one situation where that would cause a snap. So I think what I'll do, I'll still have requirements, but it's not going to be an all or nothing. These will be the weighted requirements. The weight will probably grow exponentially as the requirements get closer to being met. And then I'll have a separate class of optional requirements. Because for example, the OK sign, one of the requirements is the grip not being pressed. But then there's 2 optional requirements, which is the thumb and the index finger, because you need both of those pressed, but one or the other can happen first. Or do I need that? All right, let's go with the simplest solution first. No, I'm doing my absolute best not to have button gestures. I want it to resemble the actions that your hands are doing. So if you hold a touch controller and the grip is fully unpressed, but you press in the trigger and you put your hand over either the A or B button, that's basically an OK signal right there. So that would show the proper OK signal. So it's not exactly what your hand's doing, but it's an approximation, because obviously there's a controller in the way. And then pointing, you'll press in the grip all the way and you have your finger straight out. And then your thumb is free to do whatever your thumb wants. So you could do a little finger gun action if you want. So I've already done a lot of this work in the single player mode. That uses a different asset, the auto hand asset, which is a great physics asset. But they do the button gestures. They don't do natural gestures. So I had to write the natural gestures from scratch. But when I did that, I was looking more for results than reusability. That was all very messy. So I'm trying to do things quote unquote correctly this time. Because if I can do this well the first time, first of all, I'm going to open source this eventually, so everybody can use it and make their own games with these physics hands and gestures and all that. But also, any games I make in the future will most likely use this. And maybe a different game needs a different gesture, or maybe you have 8 fingers, I don't know. I'm trying to make it as extensible as possible. Okay, so let's focus on a single gesture for now. Probably the pointing would be easiest. It does have a single. The thumb is ignored in the gesture because it could be up or down, and that's the only gesture I believe that has that. But the action of pointing is very simple. So I think I'll start with the pointing gesture. So we need to make a list of finger requirements. So in that case, it would be essentially what I have already. For pointing, the index not pressed in at all. It should actually be index -1 because I'm going to count 0 as touched but not pressed. Because these have capacitive sensors in them. And the middle ring and pinky are all counted by the grip. One button handles all three. And then the thumb is an X because it could be up or down for your finger gun moments. So what we'll do, we'll give each finger its own weight value, because obviously in pointing, the index finger is far more important. If your index finger is in close to your hand, obviously you're not pointing. And it's going to be fighting with the 3 other fingers. This needs to be much more important. I think I'm gonna start having problems with these steps on the right side of the screen because they are gonna start getting cut off if I type something too long. I need to create a custom little list there because I actually, the task list on the bottom, that's something that I made custom right here. So I can change things, like if I complete a task, so that one's completed and the next one's active. Refresh it and bam. So that's all custom, so I can format it exactly how I want. Whereas the steps on the right is just Microsoft's to-do task list. Yeah, I'll definitely change that for next time. Causing me a lot of stress here trying to make things short enough to fit in a single line. So I'm just gonna type finger weights. Oh, you get to listen. Congratulations. Yeah, I don't think I'd be too interested in one of these streams just for watching. Maybe if I was playing like a Resident Evil. I haven't touched it in a while, the Resident Evil 4 VR. Maybe I'll jump back on that sometime. Good to have you. Okay, so we're just going to be going with the simplest solutions here first. So, list of finger requirements of where those fingers should be on the controller. Each finger will be weighted differently, and then we need to calculate the overall weight each frame. Okay, that's definitely going to get cut off. There's the problem cropping up. I suppose there's nothing really on the right side of the screen. I'll just expand this a little bit. It's gonna take a second. Have to change the crop. Something like that. Causes some odd overlapping, but for today it'll be fine. I really hate how as I add things to the to-do lists, the last thing you add goes on top, which is really odd. You would think it would go on the bottom. I'm not going to write my to-do list in reverse order. Then we have to apply the finger pose weights, we'll call it. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that yet. I think I'm going to count what your fingers would be doing, what the hand would be doing if there were no poses as its own pose. That's a complicated sentence. Basically, if you launched the game right now and started wiggling your fingers, that would kind of count as its own pose. Okay, so let's get started then. So let's change our data structures a little bit. Okay, so a pose will have a name, finger pose data. I think that's all we need. Yeah, let's just stick with finger pose data. So get rid of requirements, get rid of that whole class. We have the finger we're affecting, the target, and then an integer. We'll do the weight, do 1 by default. What is this complaining about? Cannot have instance property or field initialize. Oh, a struct, not a class. I'll just make it a class. Doesn't matter. Okay. Gonna clear out my finger poses for now. Like I said, I had started on this earlier, but we're changing things up. So this will be point, and we're gonna be doing 4 fingers. Thumb does not matter. Pointing. The index should be 0, and everything else 1. The weights are, for some reason, they defaulted to 0. Let's just choose a random, I don't know, 8. these as one. So here's a little note I left myself earlier. That I should not be affecting the fingers. I shouldn't be directly affecting the fingers. I should just be changing the minimum and maximum that they can move. And I think that's still the right choice. How much does a pirate's finger weigh? Enough to attract a crocodile. So I would say about 8 for the index. Let's go ahead and tick off the finger requirements there. And we also set our finger weights. And we have to calculate the overall weight each frame. So that'll be, I think, a number between 0 and 1. Be the overall weight. Not in the game, no. You'd have to have a, I think the Knuckles controller that has per finger gestures. Right now we're just focused on Oculus. So first we need to get all the inputs for the fingers. So let's see. It's gonna be similar to this loop where we're getting the capacitive and the curl. Then we're not assigning it. We're just gonna store it. Let's have a dictionary of finger type and float for how much it's being pressed. Each go around. Very creative. That emote. Ah, beer GG. So let's see. How am I handling capacitive? Turning false for anything that's grip related. Split these into 3 different groupings. Ooh, sounds like fun. What? We have pressed, we have touched, but not pressed for the capacitive buttons. I've pressed. Where did my screen go? Let's create a new value here. This will be, I don't know, we'll just call it final input. So that would be a -1 if it is not being capacitively pressed. Or pressed at all, which I think is pretty safe to say if it's not being capacitively pressed and it's not touched, not pressed. But for the grip, we need to make that that difference. And if it is capacitive, not being triggered. That's kind of what I'm calling curl here. And it'll be 0. Otherwise. Format this. That is just really ugly. Then the final input is the curl value. Add that to our dictionary. Now we have every finger's input. A handy dandy dictionary to sort through. So now we need the different poses set up as finger poses. We need to be looping through the finger poses. Oh, I lost my spot here. I think we'll be creating another dictionary of poses and weights for the poses. Okay. So now we have to go through every finger and see how close our inputs are. What we want. Finger pose data. if I just pull this out. Sure, there's a better way to do this, but for now, this would be a absolute value because we want the difference between them, and we do not care if it's positive or negative. So this would be, what did I call it up here? Finger inputs of that finger minus our target. Hey there, now play. Welcome to this exciting dev stream. So now, the closer the difference is to 0, we need to exponentially increase the weight. So each finger has its own weight. It'll multiply it against. You know what? Keep it simple. But let's not do anything exponential yet. So let's just do... So first we'll average the difference times the weight. We'll just call it value for now. And then we need to average these values across every finger. And that'll give us the final pose weight. Here you go. Okay, so we're adding each of these values to the total pose weight. And now we are going to divide it by the number of fingers in our pose. And that'll give us the overall weight averaged out. Now we add in pose and total pose weight. Wants it as an integer. Right, because I wanted to normalize it. I do want floats. Otherwise we might get some odd behavior. Also, this should be inverted, because as it is now, further the distance, the higher the weight. We want the opposite. We want it to be a higher weight the closer we are to the target. I could add, just flip the sign and make this negative. That's not a very good solution. This is when I should have paid attention in math class. So what I want is it to be a value of 1 times the finger weight. If it's a 0 difference. Let's just write this out. And then at what point do I want the weight to be 0 times the data weight? So getting a value of 1 if the difference is 0 is pretty easy. Change this to a greater than or equal to. That way we can get the difference as a clamped value between 0 and 1. So, okay, you know what? I think this is actually working out. So if we do, instead of the difference, do difference plus 1. That doesn't seem right. Difference plus 1 would work for taking a 0 and turning it into 1, but obviously it would not work from to a 0. So what's the best way to invert? If it's a 0, the sign doesn't matter. We could do negative difference plus 1. That would work. I think that's the right answer here. There's a value between 0 and 1, and then we multiply by the weight of the finger. Average it all out. Problem is this total pose weight, not a value between 0 and 1. It is its own magical number that does not follow any rules. Force it to be constrained in some way. If it's just how it is right now, if we don't constrain it, then pose that requires 5 fingers will have a higher weight than this pose, which only has 4 fingers. how to constrain it. Okay, so instead of dividing it by the number of fingers, we need to also calculate the total weight of all the fingers and divide by that value instead. And now it will be a value between 0 and 1. And for now, let's just log the total pose weight. Comes up with. Set up the Oculus. Referring or refusing to connect to Oculus Link. Start the headset, and hopefully that'll fix it, because otherwise I would need to restart my computer. Oh, still not working. Let me try ending through Task Manager. Everything Oculus. That's everything Oculus purged and started back up. hitting the 3 dots. Something was completely messed up. I couldn't see my controllers, I couldn't see anything except for the Guardian. Start my headset again. Okay, I restarted, and let's try one more time. Oh. Damn. Do I want to restart the computer? Really a last-ditch effort. Oh, there's a button right here for restarting Oculus. Yeah, let's give that a try. That didn't work though. Let me just unplug the USB cable. Did properly. Okay, try again. Negative. Last chance here. We'll try Airlink. Now I need to go into my settings and turn on that feature. Experimental. Airlink connection lost. Gosh, it really does not want to work today. Oh, got it. Airlink is up and running. Now I want to see this console. Then you'll be able to see the character I spawn in as. Yeah, we're going to be joining in as a client. It's actually going to be joining the live servers. But that's okay. There. Hello, hello. Standard pose. No fancy poses yet, just what I'm working on now. Got the fist. But I'm not getting the logs I was looking for. Be an update fingers before I actually set them. Poses, and we have. Oh no, we don't. I haven't applied the override here. Apply everything. I don't know how much I should actually. How much I actually changed. Oh. Apply it when it's labeled. Okay, here we go. Not a number. It is not a number. Total pose weight is not a number. Fairly often. Why is that? It almost certainly has to do with this division here. Let me make sure I don't have any weights of 0. Oh, it's the left hand. I'm almost sure of it. Let's just set the left hand to 0 poses. And now if we apply, it should be all numbers. Yeah, there we go. So if I press on the trigger, let's see, show you my hand here. If I press on the trigger, oh, I'm not actually doing anything. Figured that out. It's because, why is it? Why is it? Why is that not listening to the inputs anymore? Oh, you know what? I probably just didn't have the game window pressed. Yeah, that was it. So, got a hand. Weights are 0. Pressing the grip, and it goes up to a little over a quarter. But it should be 1 right now. It should be 1. For some reason, it's only 1 if I push in the trigger slightly. That's actually because the trigger's value is -1 because I'm not touching it at all. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? It's one of life's great questions. Well, let's jump back in here and do the math. On the difference between so the target is going to be 0. Oh, I think I actually have the target as -1. Oh, I see. I can't actually set it to -1. So I need to allow that to happen. Get rid of the limits between 0 and 1. No units, just 27. You, sir, are smarter than I. That should be -1. Let's try that. Except, I think when we flip the sign now, it's gonna be confused. The difference, if our finger input is 0 and the target's a -1, the difference will be 1. Which should give a value of -1 plus 1 times 0, which would be 0. Now that'd be -2. Special. You're very special. So if our input is a -1, target's -1, that gives us 0. 0 equals 0. 0 plus 1, so that would give us correct value. I think this might work. Give it a shot. Okay. Hello, hello. No. The exact same problem. Only if I wiggle my finger a little bit, get close to 1. But if I do the pose exactly, good. It doesn't like it. Let me log the input value. But only if the finger is the index. I'm curious what this is giving me. Maybe I just haven't set up the whole -1. Oh, no, I don't have a command for lurking. I'm too lame for that. Yeah, it's giving me an input of -1 for the index. not getting an input of 0 when I touch it though. That's a problem. So I need to set the capacitive, makes it 0. So if capacitive is true and it's not curled, be 0. Okay, let's do some additional logging here. So if type is the index we get the values and we log it. New logs. We'll just call it new logs there. Okay, so we got false. But we are getting a value for how much pressed it is? Pressed value isn't changing. Welcome back. Why isn't the pressed value changing? How am I calculating that? Thumb gets a 0 because it's only capacitive. Otherwise we're reading index pressed and grip pressed. I'm not doing anything crazy here. Why is the curl not 0? Let me check. Input. Index pressed. Right index pressed. Axis. For the trigger. Audio's funky. Let me pull up the stream and listen for myself. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think it might be something on your side. Sounds decent to me. Maybe you just don't like my voice. It's not for everyone. Back to the task at hand. Like you hear me double. Let me pull it up one more time and listen for that specifically. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. No, sounds alright to me. Maybe restart your browser or your app. Or who knows, maybe it's just a Twitch thing. Checking the index pressed, turning the value. Maybe it's accidentally reading my left controller. Let's just hop back into it. grab my left controller this time. So now it's going from 0. No, that's the wrong one I'm looking at. It's just not changing the... Oh, it is the left one. It's doing the left. I have it set to the right index. Doing the left. Really weird. Okay. Let's see why that could be happening. So on the left hand, we're doing the left index, which is correct. And on the right hand, we're doing the right index, which is correct. And if I look at the right index, we're doing the trigger on the right hand controller. Looks correct to me. Let me see what I have for left index pressed, because that was working. I have the trigger for the left hand controller. It also looks correct. Really weird. The only difference is I have a virtual input here for keyboard. These touched, I don't think are working, period. But first things first, we need to get this controller thing sorted out. Still not fixed. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Short from listening on a secondary device. I don't know if I can narrow down the problem. Be kind of stumped. Right index, right thumb, and right grip. And when I pulled up my own stream, it all sounded correct. And that was just me loading twitch.tv. You've got me worrying too much now. Let me pull up the stream on my phone, and you will be hearing me double because I'm not gonna shut off my mic, and we'll see how it sounds. Oh, no worries. Like, if there is a problem, I definitely want to know about it. Testing, 1, 2, 3. It still sounds fine to me. maybe if I just don't talk as soft and a little farther away from the mic. Testing, testing. I am relatively certain it's something on your end. I've had this headset sitting on top of my head for a while, and I'm not actually using it. Let me just put that down while we figure this out. So I'm gonna do a virtual input for the right index pressed. Let's see. So this will be. We just want a positive one. Will be, we'll call it U. I suppose we can just bind a negative because why not? And that'll be J. Save it. Back to the game, spawn in. Okay, so the odd thing is that you can see the right hand is moving. And this is with the, definitely the right index. But the value is not changing on what's being logged. The curl is still 0. Oh my lord. It's because I'm logging on both the left and the right hands. So this is a log from the left hand. And if I go up, I should see a log from the right hand. Here, let me, I'm just gonna hold down the button for a second and let the logs pile up. Yeah, so right there, new logs. It's not capacitively pressed because this is a keyboard, but the curl is 1. I've been looking at this one, which is a 0. That's because that's left hand. This is the right hand. So everything is working correctly. But not the capacitive, I don't think. I've never tested the capacitive. Okay, put the headset back on. Let me get rid of those logs that I don't need anymore because I know this is a 0. Oh, you know what? Okay, let me do right and okay, so now we're only doing the right hand, only the index. Weird, it's working fine now. Glad you got it worked out. And double glad that it wasn't an actual issue on my end. That would have been very unfortunate. Okay, so hello. Okay, so we got new logs. False for capacitive. Yes, the capacitive is not working. We got a -1 for input. What order are these logs going in here? I'm logging capacitive, the curl, the final input. new logs, capacitive curl, final input. Okay, so that's -1. So why is this not a higher weight value? Let's get rid of this guy here. Yeah, so the input was correct. Let's just start logging out some more. So now I want to know the value and the weight of the value. I guess I also want to know what the finger is. Or maybe we should... No, we should see every finger. Okay, there's the hand. I need to click on the game screen. Okay. Now we're gonna hit pause here. And we can look through these logs. We'll start with the index. So the new pose, we have the index, which is getting a value of 0. And everything else is getting a value of 1. So why is the index getting a value of 0? The input is -1. Okay, so -1 minus -1 is 0. That's why. 0, 0. No. That should mean that this is 1 times 8. Okay. Let's dig a little deeper. So now we know we only care about the index finger. I mean, technically, jump on the beta branch and you can try it right now. It's just very, very limited right now. Right. Well, then I will tell you, you're not missing too much right now. Like I said, it is very, very limited. 2 months? It's gonna take them 2 months to send you a replacement? Gosh. Let's see. 2 months from now, it's gonna be like January 20th. Where will we be on January 20th? Okay, Okay, so I'll have 3 updates since then. So you'll be able to write on the chalkboard. Obviously the hand gestures I'm doing right now. Name tags and gender select. Oh yeah, I'll just pop this up here. This is all publicly accessible. Height calibration. This update right here, January 11th, is going to be a really important one. It's going to make the characters look more human. Right now, if you jump in, the character's actually kind of behind you, and your head doesn't match it. Once we add in the height calibration, you will become the character. Right now, things are kind of funky in that regard. Okay, so let's check what input we're feeding it, and we'll check what we want. Let's get rid of those for now. I guess what we can do is just kind of walk through the whole math problem. And just see where it's going wrong. Oh, I never hit the stop button. It's gonna be upset with me. Headset back on. Hello, hello. And we will click on the game window because you have to do this. Pause. See what on earth is happening here. So we got the new pose. Let me put this on the side here so we can kind of follow along. Oh gosh, there we go. So new pose. The input we're feeding it is -1, which is correct, but it says the target is 0. Oh no. Oh my gosh. I never applied this, did I? So this has the target as -1, but if I go up here. No. Wait. Oh, because I'm in play mode. I override. Yeah, I never applied the prefab. That's always frustrating. Okay. Now let's try it. Yeah, there we go. Now we're getting the one fully weighted. When we do this, the thumb does not affect it. Only thing is we're getting almost 3/4 of a weight just for having an open hand. So I think we need to weight the index even more. Let's go back in here. Our right hand. Currently it's weighted 8. Let's just make it something pretty absurd, like 30. And then let's apply. try again. So now we get, what on earth? Now it's even worse. Now we get 90% weight for having an open hand. Okay, let's take a look at this. Pull up this, so new pose right there. The input is -1. Oh, no, it's the opposite. I need to weight the index finger less, because by having an open hand, obviously your index finger's out. I need to weight that less. So let's do it like, let's just do 2. See how that works. That's kind of my process for a lot of this, is just try and fail over and over and over again. So now I'm getting 0.4. I think that's acceptable for now. I'm not applying the pose yet. I mean, technically this is the correct pose. But that's because I haven't limited the min and max for the fingers yet. I need to create the min and max for the default pose. Essentially no pose assigned. Statically set. None of this weighted stuff I'm doing now. Roller. And that you take the OK sign, it will make it so the open pose. Here's the OK sign. See that the thumb is bent differently than if it was side. I mean, if you make those gestures with your own hand, you see the thumb curling differently. So I need to save that rotation as well and apply those with the weights. Let's go ahead and add that to the task list. Set up finger target rotations. Last thing we do. Do. So we need pose. First, let's get rid of all these logs. We are done with them. The idle pose is going to be separate from this array of poses. Wait for it to compile. really surprised. I bumped up the resolution of the stream to 1080 today, and it is not dropping any frames. I did lower the bitrate because bitrate is not nearly as important for something like this than game. I'm still pleasantly surprised. So here we have the idle pose. We're gonna do all 5 fingers. Yeah, I watched the first VOD. I watched that earlier yesterday, I believe. And it was pretty hard to distinguish the text. It still probably isn't great, because I did actually make the window smaller to fit the do list items on the side. But hopefully it's clearer than last time. I've got decently sized monitors, so if I wanted to make it clearer for other people, I would have to make it look comically large on my own monitor. And sorry, I'm not doing that. Take these VODs and upload them on YouTube. Got your ASMR right there. Index, middle, ring, pinky, and thumb. So from you know what? These don't have targets though. Yes, they do. I guess the target would be -1 on all of them. And the weights can be those. Oh, right. We need to add min and max finger curls, because that's really the entire purpose I have for this idle pose, is to show how open your hand can be, because I don't want it to open to the max. That would look really awkward if you just right now looked at your hand and opened it as far as you could. That is not natural. Okay, so what I need to do is set these to like 15% from the maximum value. Oh, would you look at that? Open/idle, 15%. That's where I got my numbers from, because I had calculated this all earlier, and the thumb needs to be 40%, because that thumbs up, very different from an idle hand. Down to the finger poses. Have the pose data. Okay. I feel like the pose data, add to this class or create a new one. My initial thought was create a new one. Yes, I do want to create a new one, just in case there's ever a pose that affects a finger that isn't weighted. let's do finger pose weights. Then we'll create another class. Finger pose. This is the toughest part of programming. Naming your classes. Finger pose strengths. I like that. So consistent formatting is important. So here we're gonna have a finger type. We'll have a min and a max. So a float min and a float max, and we'll default those to 0 and 1. Yes, every finger has its own Gertrude. Don't you know? Oh yeah. It's my fault I didn't add the no backseat gaming allowed tag on the stream. Okay, so oh, I gotta go back. Oh. I have to wait for it to compile before I can go back. I did not add the class to my poses. Back down. So now we have an array of finger pose constraints. And I want to rename this to weights, but I think that might ruin what I have set up. But let's see. Finger pose does not contain, oh, I gotta change some other nonsense. Go. Yeah, I don't think they have a tag for that. Okay, did I ruin everything? I did. So, weights list. Okay, so 4 of them. Index, middle, ring, pinky. What did we have? 1, 1, 1, 2, I think. No, that's 2 weight. Yeah, that should be right. And now we have. I don't know if we have any constraints for the pointing. Curious. Should I always have 5 constraints? Or should I just assume that if a constraint doesn't exist for a finger, it means there is no constraint? Also, it's really annoying how it doesn't set the max to 1 automatically. For now, we'll just create 5 constraints for every single one. So idle pose, we have the weights. Again, this will be 5 fingers. Each one will be weighted the same. -1 for the target. Every finger. Call it idle. The name really isn't used. The only time it's used is to make this more user-friendly in the lists. have all the weights of each pose. Need to start interpolating between the poses. Yeah, hands are a very complex subject. But there's quite a few assets on the asset store that aren't necessarily cheap. Hands are tough. Also why in the robotics industry, hands are complicated to make. Prosthetic hands, and trying to make it look humanoid is difficult. Is this the first game I've made? It's the first VR game. It's the first game I've made in a long time. The only ones I've made are mobile games, and I'm not really too proud of them. I more of did it as a job and then like a passion.